The girl with the purple backpack was a rainy morning in New York City, the kind that made the airport feel even colder than usual. People hurried past one another, dragging wheeled suitcases and cradling steaming coffee cups, their faces buried in phones and flight schedules. Inside Terminal 4 of JFK International, the air was thick with announcements, footsteps, and quiet tension. Travelers glanced at monitors, impatiently waiting for delays to clear or gates to open. No one paid attention to anything or anyone outside their own world. No one except Sundar Pichai. He had arrived quietly, as he always did. No entourage, no flashing cameras. Just a man in a dark jacket, jeans, and a worn leather laptop bag slung over his shoulder. Few people even recognized him, and Sundar preferred it that way. He liked observing people, watching how they moved, spoke, connected, or didn't. Airports fascinated him. They were places where emotions ran wild. Reunions, goodbyes, dreams, regrets, all colliding under bright fluorescent lights and buzzing. Speakers. He was walking toward Gate 27, heading for a connecting flight to a private summit in Geneva. But as he passed a coffee kiosk, something unusual caught his eye. A little girl sat on the floor near a vending machine. She couldn't have been more than 6 or 7. Her small arms wrapped tightly around a purple unicorn backpack. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks, and her bottom lip trembled as she tried not to cry louder. Travelers streamed by, stepping around her like she was invisible. Sundar slowed for a moment. He stood still, unsure. Was someone with her? Was she lost? He looked around, expecting to see a flustered parent running over, but no one came. She was all alone, his heart clenched. He knelt down slowly, making sure not to startle her. "Hey there," he said softly, his voice barely rising above the hum of the terminal. "Are you okay?" The girl looked up with wide, frightened eyes. Her cheeks were streaked with tears, and she clutched the backpack tighter as if afraid he might take it. "My name's Sundar," he continued, offering a gentle, "What's your name?" She didn't answer right away. Her voice came out as a whisper, shaky and broken. "Maria." "I'm Maria," he said. "That's a beautiful name. Is your mommy or daddy here with you?" Maria shook her head, then nodded, then burst into a fresh wave of tears. Okay, Sundar said, his heart breaking a little. "Can you tell me what happened?" She looked down at the floor tiles, then pointed toward the gates. We were getting on the plane," she mumbled. "But Mommy said she forgot something. She told me to stay here and wait. She went to get it and she didn't come back." Sundar's eyes narrowed slightly. "How long ago was that?" Maria shrugged. "I don't know." "A long time. The man said the plane left. Did anyone try to help you?" He asked gently. "No one asked," she said, barely above a whisper. "Everyone just kept walking." He looked around again. How had no one noticed this little girl? The airport was filled with security, employees, announcements. How had she slipped through the cracks? He stood slowly, then crouched beside her. "Maria, would it be okay if we go find someone who can help? I'll stay with you the whole time. Promise." Her fingers tightened around the backpack. What if Mommy comes back and I'm not here? He paused, thinking, how about this? We stay right here for a little longer. I'll sit with you. And if she doesn't come back soon, we'll ask someone to make an announcement. Sound good? Maria nodded slowly. Something in his eyes made her trust him. So they sat there, Pichai, CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the world, sitting cross-legged on the floor of an airport next to a little girl who felt forgotten by the world. As the minutes passed, he asked her about her backpack, and she told him all about the unicorn on it, whom she had named Sparkle. He learned that her favorite color was yellow, and that she loved pancakes with bananas on top. Her voice was still soft, but steadier. Sundar listened like she was the only person in the world. Then something strange happened. A man in a security uniform approached. He glanced at Sundar and Maria with suspicion. Double quote, "Sir, is everything okay here?" he asked, folding his arms. "This little girl seems to be lost," Sundar replied calmly. She's been waiting here for a long time. She said her mother left to get something and didn't return. The guard looked at Maria. Sweetheart, what's your mom's name? Maria hesitated. Samantha Torres. The guard typed something into a tablet, his brow furrowed. I don't see anyone by that name listed on the flight manifest. What? Flight? Sundar asked. Flight 9803 to San Diego. Sundar's heart sank. But Maria said her mom was getting on that plane. The guard looked between them, frowning. There's no record of a Samantha Torres boarding that flight. And we don't show a child passenger flying unaccompanied either. A sudden chill passed through Sundar. Maybe she got the flight number. Wrong, he suggested. Maybe, the guard said, though he didn't sound convinced. I'll need you both to come with me so we can sort this out. Maria clung tighter to Sundar's arm. Please don't leave me. I'm not going. Anywhere, he promised Dot as they walked toward the airport's security office. Sundar felt a strange knot forming in his stomach. Something about this didn't add up. And he couldn't shake the feeling that Maria's mother hadn't just forgotten something. She might not be coming back at all, Dot, and suddenly the world shifted. This wasn't just a random encounter anymore, Dot. It was something much deeper. Dot and Sundar was about to uncover a truth that would change everything. Asterisk. The forgotten Gadia Sundar followed the security guard through the polished maze of JFK's lower-level corridors. He couldn't stop glancing at Maria. Her tiny hand was wrapped tightly around two of his fingers, like she was afraid she'd disappear if he let go. Each step echoed down the sterile hall, and every now and then, Maria would look up at him, eyes full of questions she didn't know how to ask. Dot. They were led through a side door into a private area meant for lost children and suspicious passengers. The walls were painted in dull beige, and the furniture looked like it had seen better days. A worn-out couch sat in one corner. A small TV mounted on the wall played muted cartoons, and a vending machine blinked idly by the door. The officer, whose badge read Evans, motioned for them to sit. I'll run some checks, he said. Please stay here. Maria sat close to Sundar on the couch, her head leaning against his side. Sundar gently smoothed her hair and looked around. His phone buzzed. It was his assistant. Multiple missed calls. His flight to Geneva had long since boarded. The summit he was supposed to attend was already underway, but he didn't care. His thoughts were consumed by one thing. How does a mother vanish in an airport like this? He glanced at Maria again. Her eyes were half closed now. She looked exhausted, drained, not just from the day, but from something deeper, as if life had already asked too much of her young heart. He had seen ambition, hope, brilliance, but he had never seen a child like this, holding on to someone she had just met because she had no one else left. Officer Evans returned 10 minutes later. Frowning, there's still no record of Samantha Torres in our database, he said. No matching ID? No checked baggage? Nothing. Maybe she used a different name, Sundar offered. Maybe she was traveling on a ticket booked by someone else. We're checking every variation. Even checked CCTV footage from the gate she mentioned. No sign of the mother. But Evans hesitated. We did find something strange. Sundar sat forward. 2 hours ago, a woman matching Maria's description of her mother was seen at the terminal entrance. She was alone, no child with her. She walked in, spoke briefly to a man near the entrance, then left. Sundar's pulse quickened. She left? Yes. Got into a black SUV. No license plate recorded. Cameras glitched in that moment, oddly. That can't be a coincidence. We didn't think so either, Evan said. We're escalating this. But here's the thing. We found no missing person report filed for Maria. Nothing. It's like no one even knew she was here. So, you're telling me this little girl was just abandoned? Evans didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence said everything. Maria stirred beside him and looked up sleepily. Is Mommy coming back yet? Sundar swallowed the lump rising in his throat. Not yet, sweetie. But we're going to find out where she is. I promise. Evans knelt down beside Maria. Sweetheart, did your mommy say anything before she left you? Anything special? Maria blinked, then nodded slowly. She said she loved me. and that if anything happened, I should be brave if anything happened. Sundar echoed, alarm rising in his chest. Maria fidgeted. She was scared. She told me not to talk to the man with the snake tattoo. Evans and Sundar shared a look. Did she say who he was? Evans asked. Maria shook her head. Do you remember what he looked like? Sundar asked gently. Maria paused. He was wearing a cap, and he had a voice like sandpaper. He said he was going to help Mommy, but she didn't want his help. She cried after he left. Sundar felt a chill run through his spine. This wasn't just abandonment, this was something else. Evans straightened up. We're pulling facial recognition now. But this is starting to look less like a missing persons case, and more like trafficking. Maria didn't know what that word meant, but she knew Sundar's hand suddenly gripped hers tighter. Within the hour, 2 agents from Homeland Security showed up. A woman named Agent Riley took the lead. She was calm, composed, but there was a sharpness in her tone that suggested this wasn't her first case involving children. She listened carefully as Sundar explained everything he knew. She asked Maria questions with practiced gentleness. And when she was done, she looked at Sundar with a question of her own. Would you be willing to stay involved in this case? She asked. Maria trusts you. And frankly, we don't have a lot of leads. You being with her, it helps. Sundar didn't hesitate. I'll do whatever she needs. Riley nodded. Good. Because there's something else you should see. She handed him a printed image from a surveillance still. It showed the back of a man with a large, distinct tattoo peeking out from under his collar. A twisting serpent winding around a dagger. He's on our watch list, Riley said. Name known. Last seen in connection with a child smuggling. Ring in El Paso 2 months ago. Vanished before we could arrest him. And now he's here, Sundar said, voice low. And Maria's mother knew him? We think she was trying to escape, Riley said. Maybe she was involved at one point. Maybe she got cold feet. Either way, she left her daughter behind, probably to protect her. Sundar looked at Maria, who was drawing shapes on a piece of paper with a crayon someone had given her. So innocent. So unaware of the storm swirling around her, he felt something rising inside him. Not just concern. It was something more powerful, more personal. A sense of duty, of responsibility. This wasn't just another story in the news. This was happening to a child who now looked to him for comfort. What happens now? Sundar asked. We try to find her mother, Riley replied. And we stop that man before he finds Maria again. You think he's still looking for her? If he's part of a ring, then yes. Maria is valuable. Children like her disappear every day, and no one asks questions. Sundar stared at Riley, absorbing every word. Not on my watch. He thought not this time. They spent the night in a safe room inside the airport facility. Maria fell asleep holding Sundar's hand, whispering something about her unicorn backpack and pancakes. He stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with questions and anger and quiet determination. The next morning, Riley returned with new footage. We tracked the SUV to a warehouse in Queens, she said. It's been empty for weeks, but someone used it recently. We found candy wrappers, blankets, and she hesitated. A small stuffed unicorn with Maria's name on it. Sundar's heart cracked. That's hers, he whispered. She told me about it. Riley nodded. We think her mother was hiding there with her before coming to the airport. Sundar stood slowly. Then we're close. We are. Riley agreed. But if they find out we're close, they'll disappear again. Maria came running up, clutching Sundar's hand. Are we going to find Mommy now? He looked down at her, smiled gently, and knelt to meet her eyes. Yes. Maria, he said. We are. But inside, he knew this wouldn't be simple because the truth was just starting to reveal itself. And what they were about to discover would shake everything they thought they knew. Asterisk footprints in the dark morning air in Queens was heavy with silence, as if the streets themselves were holding their breath. The sun had barely broken through the thick layer of gray clouds when a black SUV slowly pulled into an alleyway lined with old warehouse buildings. Agent Riley stepped out first, dressed in civilian clothes, a dark jacket, and a radio in her ear. Behind her was Sundar, trying to keep his expression composed despite the tension gripping his chest. Maria wasn't with them. She had been left with a protective services team in a secure location. Sundar had kissed her forehead and promised he would bring her mother back. He wasn't sure if that promise could be kept, but he knew he had to try. The warehouse loomed ahead, rusted steel doors chained shut, paint peeling off its sides, and windows either shattered or darkened. Riley motioned to two agents posted nearby. They gave a quiet nod and began circling the perimeter. Sundar, standing back, took in every detail. A piece of yellow fabric fluttered near the fence, the outline of a child's footprint smeared in dirt just by the entrance. An empty juice box near the wall with a sticker that read, Sunshine Farms, Maria. Had mentioned she liked those. This is the place, Riley said under her breath. They were here. What now? Sundar asked. We go in slow. We don't know if they're still inside, and if they are, they might not be alone. Riley and the agents worked swiftly, cutting through the rusted chains and pushing open the heavy door. The metallic groan echoed through the alleyway. Inside, the air was stale and reeked of old oil and damp wood. Broken shelves stood like skeletons in the corners. A flickering bulb overhead cast long shadows across the floor. They stepped inside. Every noise, every drip, every creak seemed louder in that silence. Sundar's heart pounded as he followed the agents through the building. He wasn't trained for this, but he couldn't bear the idea of sitting in a room somewhere, waiting for news. This was his fight now. Two in the far corner. They found the makeshift camp. Old mattresses, several blankets, torn pillows. A drawing taped to the wall, a unicorn flying over clouds. Maria's name scribbled in purple crayon across the bottom. She was here, Sundar whispered. Riley nodded. But they're gone now, an agent called out from the back. Found a burner phone in the trash? Riley moved fast, inspecting the device with gloved hands. No SIM card, but we might be able to pull something. Sundar walked slowly through the space, taking in the details. There were empty bags of food, some open books for children, even a comb still with strands of dark hair caught in it. They were living here, he murmured, hiding. We think Samantha was trying to get away from something, Riley replied. Maybe she was working with them at some point. But something changed. Maybe she wanted out. And that man with the tattoo, the one Maria mentioned, he didn't like that. Sundar nodded slowly. We need to find him. That night, Sundar returned to the safe house. Maria was asleep on a small bed, her unicorn backpack tucked under her arm like a teddy bear. Sundar watched her for a while, his thoughts racing. He saw pieces of his own childhood in her fragility, silence, the longing to belong. He'd grown up with little. A modest home in Chennai, a hard-working father, a mother who sacrificed for his future. He had never been abandoned, but he knew what fear looked like in a child's eyes. He had seen it in himself once, and now it stared back at him through Maria. He sat beside her bed and gently brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. We'll find her, he whispered. The next morning brought a break. We got a hit, Riley said, stepping into the safe. House lounged with a laptop in her hands. The burner phone had a link to an encrypted message app, and one of the numbers pinged a location last night, a motel just outside the city. Do you think Samantha's there? No, but someone connected is. Sundar's stomach twisted. Can I come? Riley hesitated. You know I shouldn't allow it, but you've been one of the few people Maria trusts. And frankly, this case became personal to you the moment she grabbed your hand. Then let's go. The motel was the kind of place people stayed when they didn't want to be found. Flickering neon signs, broken vending machines, and rooms with doors that looked like they'd been kicked in more than once. Riley and her team spread out, knocking on doors. One by one, it was room 104 that gave them the lead. Inside. They found a man, thin, dirty, and paranoid. At first he resisted. Then Riley showed him the photo of the man with the snake tattooed. His eyes darted. You know him? She asked. I ain't saying nothing. The man grumbled. Riley leaned in. He's trafficking kids. He left a 6-year-old girl alone in an airport. And her mother may be in danger. The man hesitated, then finally muttered, Name's Rafe. They call him Snake. He runs things for a guy in Jersey, big guy, bigger money. A woman showed up a few weeks ago with a kid, trying to hide. Rafe was pissed, said she was property. And now? Sundar asked. She ran, said she was going to expose them. Rafe said she'd pay for that. Do you know where she went? The man shook his head. But Rafe's looking, and if he finds her first, you won't see her again. Riley stood, her jaw tight. We need to find her before he does. They left the motel in a rush. Every second now felt like borrowed time. Sundar sat quietly in the backseat of the van. As the agents strategized, his mind spun in 1,000 directions. What would he tell Maria if they didn't find her mother? How would she survive another heartbreak? He reached into his bag and pulled out his phone. He opened his email, but his inbox was a blur. Messages from Europe, updates from board members, reminders about speeches. None of it mattered now. For the first time in years, he had put the world on pause. Not for business, not for money, but for a little girl who didn't have anyone else. And somehow, it felt right that evening. They got another break. A woman called the department's tip line. She said she had seen Samantha alone, afraid on the train heading to Harlem. The woman didn't want to give her name, but she described Samantha perfectly, down to the small scar on her neck that Maria had mentioned. Riley and her team moved fast. By nightfall, they were at a small community shelter nestled between 2 apartment blocks in Harlem. The shelter was packed families, refugees, runaways. The workers were kind but overwhelmed. They checked the sign-in sheets. No Samantha Torres. She could have used a fake name. Sundar said a young volunteer named Jules overheard and stepped forward. Wait, a woman with a kid? Or no kid, Riley said. But she might have talked about her daughter. Jules nodded slowly. I think I know who you mean. She came in 3 nights ago. Looked scared out of her mind. Kept asking about safe places, like shelters that don't ask too many questions. Where is she now? She left, Jules said softly. But before she did, she asked me to mail this. He handed over a sealed envelope. Riley opened it. Slowly, inside was a letter. It was hastily written, the ink smudged, but the words were clear. To whoever finds this. I had to leave my daughter behind. Not because I wanted to, because I had no choice. He was coming. He said he'd hurt if I didn't cooperate. So I ran, hoping someone kind would for good. Her name is Maria. She's my whole world. Please protect her. I'm going to the only place left where you won't look for me. If I don't make it, tell Maria I love her more than anything. Always. Samantha Sundar. Read the note in silence. The room felt still. Even the noise of the shelter faded into nothing. She's running again, Riley said quietly. But she's still alive, and she's still trying to protect her daughter, Sundar added. Even if it means giving her up. Now we just need to figure out where she went. Sundar looked at the last line again. The only place left where he won't look for me. And suddenly, something clicked in his mind. A memory. A story Maria had told him while doodling on the couch the day they met. She had said, Mommy used to take me to a special place with flowers and birds and a big old train. She said it was our hideout. A place with flowers, birds, and a big old train. His heart started racing. He knew where Samantha had gone, and if they were fast enough. They might still reach her, asterisk. The high-roof car sped through the rain-soaked streets of Manhattan. Its windshield, wipers slicing across the glass like clock hands counting down. Every red light felt like a warning. Every turn carried the weight of uncertainty. Inside the vehicle, Sundar sat in the back seat, fingers clasped tight, staring ahead with eyes that burned with urgency. Next to him, Agent Riley tapped on her tablet, cross-referencing maps, train stations, parks, and gardens. And then, suddenly, she froze. "I think I found it," she said. There's a spot in the Bronx Botanical Garden, an old, decommissioned train car on display. It's part of a garden trail tucked in the rear section. Hard to see from the main paths. It's surrounded by wildflowers and birds during spring. Sundar looked up. "That has to be it." Maria said it was their hideout. Riley turned to the driver. "Get us there, now." The rain picked up as the car weaved through traffic, water rushing down gutters like tiny rivers. Sundar's thoughts raced. He kept seeing Maria's face in his mind, those wide, trusting eyes, that tiny voice asking, "Is Mommy coming back?" And now there was a real chance the answer might be yes. But the question loomed, would they get there in time? As they pulled up to the gardens, the main gate was already closing for the evening. A security guard in a poncho stepped forward. "Sorry. Folks, park's closed. Last admission was 30 minutes ago." Riley flashed her badge. "Federal investigation. We need access immediately." The guard stepped back, stunned, then opened the side gate without another word. The garden felt like a forgotten world, lush and drenched, with petals clinging to the air and mist hovering above the stone paths. Birds fluttered between soaked branches, their songs muted by the storm. Puddles mirrored the gray sky, and far in the distance, under a thick canopy of trees and vines, sat the old train car, rusted, silent, almost dreamlike. Sundar and Riley moved quickly down the path, flashlights bouncing off the glistening leaves Dot as they neared the train car. Sundar's breath caught Dot. A figure sat hunched on the steps. She wore a rain-soaked hoodie, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. She looked thinner than he imagined, fragile, almost ghostly. But even through the shadow and rain, he could see the resemblance, those same soft cheekbones Maria had, that same curve of the chin. It was her. Samantha. Riley raised a hand, signaling the team to hang back. "Samantha Torres." She called out gently. The woman flinched, her eyes darting up like a deer caught in headlights. "No, don't come near me." Her voice cracked. "He's coming. He said if I talked to anyone, he'd kill her." Sundar stepped forward, his voice calm, low, and steady. "Samantha, Maria is safe. She's with us. She's okay." The name hit her like a bullet. Samantha dropped to her knees, shaking, gasping for air. "Maria," she whispered, trembling. "She's alive?" "Yes," Sundar said. "I found her at the airport. She waited for you. She cried for you." Tears began streaming down Samantha's face. She covered her mouth with her hands and sobbed, her whole body shaking with grief and guilt. "I didn't want to leave her," she cried. "But he was watching. He told me if I didn't deliver her, if I didn't cooperate, he'd take her anyway. I couldn't risk it. I thought if I left her where someone might find her, someone kind." "You did the right thing," Sundar said softly. "You were trying to protect her." Samantha looked up at him, her eyes searching. "Who are you?" He crouched beside her in the mud. "Someone who happened to be at the airport. Someone who couldn't walk away." "He won't stop," she whispered. "Rafe," he said, "once you're in, there's no way out." Riley stepped forward now, firm but compassionate. "We're working on shutting him down. We've got evidence. Witnesses, but we need your help." "He has people everywhere," Samantha said. "Cops, drivers, even some airport workers. He doesn't traffic just kids. He launders money, moves stolen documents, everything. But the kids, that's how he controls people. He took Maria's father, 2 years ago. He never came back." Riley's eyes widened. "You mean he killed him?" Samantha said, voice like glass. "Or sold him? I never found out." Sundar sat back, trying to process it all. It was bigger than he thought, darker than he could have imagined. And now this broken woman, this mother, was the only living witness who could bring it all down. But as the wind picked up and trees swayed, a sharp crack echoed from somewhere behind them. A twig breaking followed by silence. Too much silence. Riley turned quickly, her hand reaching for her sidearm. Stay down, she whispered to Samantha. A second later, a shadow emerged from the trees, tall, broad-shouldered, with a baseball cap pulled low and a hoodie damp with rain. Sundar saw it before he even saw the tattoo. The eyes, cold, calculating. Rafe. Double quotes, step. Away from her, he growled. This doesn't concern you. Riley raised her weapon. Freeze. Rafe didn't flinch. You really think I'm walking out of here in cuffs? Behind him, two more figures emerged, one with a crowbar, another with a knife. Sundar's pulse thundered in his ears. Rafe stepped closer. Give me the woman. I'll make sure it's painless. Sundar stood. She's not going anywhere. With you? Rafe laughed. And who are you supposed to be? Another do-gooder. Some bleeding heart. Sundar's jaw tightened. I'm someone who doesn't turn his back when a child is crying. Rafe's smirk faltered for just a second. Big mistake, he hissed. No, Riley said behind him. Yours. From the trees, red lights appeared like stars blinking to life. Agents with rifles, body armor, infrared sights. They have been waiting, watching, silent as the storm. Riley had called them in the moment they stepped into the garden. Drop your weapons, she ordered. Rafe hesitated, then lunged toward Samantha. The agents fired. Rubber bullets hit Rafe's leg, knocking him off balance. He crumpled to the ground with a roar of pain. The other two dropped their weapons, hands up, faces pale. Samantha screamed. Sundar rushed forward, shielding her as agents cuffed the attackers. It's over, he whispered. But Samantha just wept, her body collapsing into his arms. I thought I'd never see her again, she sobbed. You will, he promised. Tonight. 2 hours later, Samantha sat in a warm room, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. Sundar walked in quietly. And behind him, Maria peeked from the hallway. The moment their eyes met, everything else vanished. Mommy. Maria cried, running into her arms. Samantha broke into sobs, wrapping her daughter in the tightest embrace. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. They held each other like the world could fall apart again and they'd still stay connected. Sundar stepped back, giving them space, but his eyes were wet. They're safe now, Agent Riley said beside him. Because you didn't walk away. But deep inside, Sundar knew something else. This wasn't the end. Because darkness like this doesn't disappear overnight. And somewhere out there, people like Rafe were still operating. Still taking children. Still destroying families. He turned to Riley. What's our next move? She raised an eyebrow. Our? You said it yourself, Sundar said. This became personal. And in that moment, he wasn't just a bystander anymore. He was ready to fight back. Asterisk a voice for the voiceless. 3 weeks passed. In that time, the world returned to its routine. Flights resumed. Emails poured in. Deals were signed. But for Sundar, the days moved differently now. Something inside him had changed. He had seen a part of life he couldn't unsee. He had held a sobbing child who believed her mother was gone forever. He had watched that same mother shiver in fear as a manhunt closed in around her. And when Rafe and his men were taken into custody, Sundar had thought the nightmare might be over. But the truth was more complicated than that. The arrest had only scratched the surface. Asterisk. Since that night, more information had come to light. Samantha, now under full protection, had given a full statement. She described safe houses turned into trafficking hubs. She named locations, names, aliases. She told them how she had been lured into the operation years ago, thinking she'd found work that could help her raise Maria. How promises had turned into threats. How freedom became control. And she wasn't alone. Dozens of women had been through the same cycle. Some were still missing. Some never made it out. And the more Samantha talked, the more the picture came into focus. This wasn't just a local ring. This was a national network. A ghost operation hiding behind ordinary places. Car rentals, airport lounges, truck stops, even tech repair shops. And they had been operating in silence for years because no one looked close enough. No one wanted to believe something so vile could hide in plain sight. But Sundar believed it now, and he wasn't going to stay silent that one morning. After a long night reading the case files Agent Riley had cautiously shared with him, Sundar stood by the window of his apartment, overlooking Manhattan. The city moved like clockwork below him, cabs honking, pedestrians rushing, stores opening, but it all felt like noise. Because above it all, Maria's voice echoed in his head. No one asked. Those were her words that first day in the airport. All those people passing her, stepping around her as if she were invisible. And he had asked. He had stopped. That decision had changed everything. But what if the world could be taught to ask? What if compassion could be amplified? What if people could be trained to see the unseen? He'd picked up his phone and made a call. Dev, he said, speaking to the head of one of Google's special initiatives teams, I need your help. And this won't be about products. It's about people. 3 days later, Sundar walked into a private briefing room with Riley. On the screen behind them, a new interface glowed, a prototype using facial recognition, AI pattern matching, and behavioral analysis to identify possible signs of trafficking at airports, malls, and transit stations. You're really building this, Riley said, stunned. I'm not just building it, Sundar replied. I'm funding it. I want this installed in every major airport in the US within the year. Riley crossed her arms. That's ambitious. So is trafficking children in broad daylight, he replied sharply. And they pulled that off. Riley nodded slowly. We can help with the data, but it won't be enough. You'll need public awareness and policy support. I'll get both, Sundar said, and you're going to help me. The next few weeks were a storm of meetings, phone calls, and difficult conversations. Sundar met with senators, school boards, international agencies. He pushed his teams to work round the clock. He didn't ask for applause. He didn't want headlines. But people began to notice. The CEO who stopped for a little. Girl. The man who walked away from a global summit to sit on a cold airport floor. Wasn't a tech visionary anymore. He was a human being using his power to protect the powerless. And he wasn't alone. Maria and Samantha were placed in a protected relocation program. New names, new identities. Maria started school again with counselors guiding her every step. Sundar visited quietly. He brought her coloring books, puzzles, and warm pancakes with banana slices, just the way she liked. One day, as he sat across from her at a community center, Maria looked up at him and asked a question that hit him like a wave. Do you think other kids are crying in airports right now? He didn't answer right away. He couldn't. She was too young to know just how heavy that question really was. So instead, he reached into his bag and pulled out a small device. A bracelet. This, he said, is something we're testing. It lets kids press one button if they're in trouble. And it sends a signal to people who can help. Maria's eyes widened. Like superheroes. Exactly. Sundar smiled. And guess what? The first one is yours. She held it like a treasure. Thank you, she whispered. But even as they smiled, trouble was brewing. In a courthouse 2 states away. Rafe sat with his lawyer, scowling. They're going to use her testimony to tear everything down, he growled. You gave them too much, the lawyer snapped. You should have run when you had the chance. I didn't come this far to lose to some do-gooder with a suit and a pretty speech. What do you want me to do? The lawyer asked. Send a message, Rafe said darkly. If she talks, make sure someone pays. And so the quiet war began. Emails were leaked. Threats were made. One night, Maria's new school received a bomb threat, empty but terrifying. Riley increased security. Samantha was shaken. Sundar was furious. He met with law enforcement again, pushing for faster prosecutions, harsher measures, deeper investigations. They're retaliating, Riley said. We're poking the bear. Then let's take the bear down, Sundar replied. But the danger wasn't just outside. Inside his own company, some began to push back. This isn't our fight, one executive argued during a board meeting. Our job is tech, not rescue missions. Then maybe you're in the wrong company, Sundar said quietly. The room fell silent. We're not just about data and devices. he continued. We are about people. And if the tools we build can save one child from crying alone in an airport, then we've done more than half the world combined. A few days later, that same executive resigned. Sundar didn't stop. On a rainy Monday morning, Sundar stood in front of a packed auditorium at the United Nations Human Rights Summit. Journalists, world leaders, and citizens filled the hall. Maria and Samantha watched from the balcony, hidden from public view. Sundar stepped up to the podium. He looked at the crowd and paused, then he began. 3 months ago, I met a little girl named Maria. She was sitting on the floor of an airport. Cry. People stepped around her. No one asked why she was alone. No one noticed. He took a breath. But I did. Not because I'm a hero. Not because I had answers. But because in that moment, something inside me refused to look away. He told them the story, every painful detail. Not as a tech mogul. Not as a billionaire dolt, but as a man who had held a child's hand through her fear. When he finished, the room was silent. Then applause erupted, not polite, but thunderous. People stood, eyes watered. It wasn't about Sundar. It was about all the Marias of the world. And the hope that someone, somewhere, might stop for them. As the summit closed, and Sundar stepped outside. The clouds parted for the first time in days. The sun poured down across the steps like a quiet blessing. He felt his phone buzz. A message from Riley. They just arrested 2 more in the ring. The walls are falling. He smiled. But as he looked up at the skyline, he knew it wasn't over. Because evil doesn't disappear. It waits. It hides. It adapts. But so does good. So do people who care. And sometimes, all it takes to change a life is one person choosing to care, one person choosing to stop, one person choosing to say, are you okay? The fight wasn't over, but Sundar Pichai had just begun. Asterisk. The ripple that became a morning sun rose gently over a quiet hill in upstate New York, casting long golden rays across the green fields and scattering soft light over the rooftops of a small, peaceful town. This town had never seen the face of tragedy the way New York City had. It didn't move at the speed of Silicon Valley. It wasn't tangled in the sharp politics of Washington. It simply existed, quietly, beautifully, and it had become home to Maria and Samantha. They now lived in a modest 2-bedroom house on the edge of a neighborhood, where kids rode bikes freely and neighbors still said hello. Maria attended school under a different name, and Samantha worked in a nearby bookstore, helping customers find adventure between pages while quietly building her own second chance. And Sundar, though the world continued spinning fast around, and still made time to visit them. Today was one of those visits. He pulled up in a black sedan, stepped out, and was immediately greeted by Maria sprinting across the lawn. Arms flung wide, hair flying behind her like sunlight in motion. Uncle. Sundar, she shouted, tackling him in a hug that almost knocked him off balance. He laughed, crouching down to her level. You've gotten taller. I drank more milk, she said proudly. Ah, of course. Milk, the secret weapon. Behind her, Samantha stepped out onto the porch, her eyes soft, her smile full of warmth and weariness. She had come a long way. Since the night in the botanical garden, she still carried invisible scars, but now they sat beside hope. The shadows no longer defined her. Thank you for coming, she said, walking toward him. I wouldn't miss it. Sundar replied. Today was special. Maria had written a short essay at school for a project titled The Bravest Person I've Ever Met. She had written about her mother, and her words had moved her teacher so deeply that she submitted it to a national contest. Maria didn't win the contest, but something better happened. The story caught the attention of a local journalist, and soon a network reached out carefully, respectfully. With approval from authorities and disguised identities, Maria's story was adapted into a feature segment about resilience, hope, and the quiet heroes of the world. Sundar helped oversee the production to make sure no detail put her at risk. And now, the segment was about to air. They all sat on the couch, Maria between them, legs swinging, a bowl of popcorn in her lap. As the television flickered to life, a soft voice narrated a story about a girl who was left in an airport, but not forgotten. A girl who was found. A girl who was loved, and a man who stopped.